Hello, I'm Ken Zicke from the Michigan Area Radio Enthusiasts. You may have heard about the so-called digital modes that several shortwave broadcasters are currently experimenting with, and you may have even heard the raspy bleeps and blaps coming from your radio on occasion. However, many shortwave listeners and DXers seem shy about trying these modes out. This video aims to show you that you don't need a lot of fancy equipment. A simple shortwave radio and just about any computer will do. And you don't even need a fancy interface. What we're using here is simply placing the shortwave radio speaker near the computer microphone and letting the two devices talk to each other audibly. For this test, I'm using an old realistic DX150A receiver with a 2009 MacBook portable computer and FLDigi software installed. That's a freeware program with versions available for Windows, several Unix flavors, and Mac OS X. For this demonstration, we'll be decoding a test sent by Radio Australia at 12:30 UTC, June the 9th on 2013, on 9580 kilohertz. This was aimed at the Pacific, but reception here in Michigan was very good, as you're about to hear. A quick look at the FLDigi interface before we actually start to use it to decode things. As you can see, it's a pretty standard window interface for a computer. It's got various different menus that are up at the top, including a file menu that talks about folders and that sort of thing. The operations menu, which controls which mode you're actually listening to. This can be anything from CW, regular old Morse code, to PSK, QPSK, Thor, Throb, even the various unusual ones. What we're going to be doing this time is MFSK, multi-frequency shift keying. We'll talk about that in a minute. If the station transmitting the mode actually sends a digital header, the software can pick up that information and automatically set the mode. If not, you can manually set the mode using this menu. The configuration menu is very complicated, and I very strongly recommend you take a look at the PDF file that comes with the download. It can explain way better than any video can on how to configure the software. It is very particular and very picky, so you need to be very careful about how you do that. But once you follow the instructions, it's pretty much foolproof, as long as you follow those instructions carefully. At the bottom of the screen here, you'll see that there's a waterfall, and that when it actually displays the audio of the signal that's being received and shows you where it's showing on the audio spectrum. Over on this side is a scope that I'll point out when actually it's receiving the signals. It gives you a graphic representation of what's being shown there. Let's listen to what it sounds like when Radio Australia was sending its test, and we'll start that right now. As you can see, it starts out with the waltzing Matilda interval signal. And then you can see up at the top here in blue, it's identified what mode it is, and now as the tones begin, it actually starts printing out what is being transmitted. Now if you take a look at that lower right-hand corner, you'll see a green triangle shape that is demonstrating what the tones are showing on the screen. The closer that is to a triangle, the better reception is, and as you can see, it's pretty darn close at this point. The yellow stream that's showing in the waterfall is giving you an indication of where in the audio spectrum the digital tones are being shown. Now, as I've indicated, this is MFSK 16, which means it's got 16 distinct tones that it uses. MFSK you can think of as a type of CW. It's basically good old Morse code, but instead of one tone turning on and off and making the letters of the alphabet, it's got 16 tones on MFSK 16, and each one of them is encoded in such a way that you can get not only the capital letters, but also small letters and special characters as well. It's a fairly slow mode, but as soon as this particular transmission ends, they'll switch to MFSK 32, which, as you can see looking at the waterfall, uses more bandwidth but is much faster. As you can see by the text being printed out on that yellow portion of the screen. There's a little bit of splatter interference, you can hear that, but it's obviously not impacting the decoding at all. We'll pause that here for a second and continue on with more features of what you can do with digital transmissions. Now, in addition to sending plain text, the digital modes such as MFSK can also be adapted to send things like web pages and images. In this case, what's being sent is an FL message formatted text program that, if it is decoded properly, will actually automatically open up a web browser page and display an image or web page or other data that's being transmitted on the air. This is a very brief example of what that looks like. In this case, what they're transmitting is a Radio Australia logo that will pop up automatically in my web browser once that transmission is completely received. And there you see it, actually. The other thing that is possible is sending images. And that's what's being loaded line by line, as you see right next to that Radio Australia logo. In this case, the image that they're sending is the graphical representation of the Radio Australia ellipse / infinity sign logo, whatever that thing actually is supposed to represent. And as you can see, that is not quite as clear as the Radio Australia logo in the digital transmission of the web page, but it can give you any graphical image, photograph, logo, whatever, can be transmitted in that way. These are all being received through FLDigi software. There are other versions of software out there for different modes, particularly for slow scan television modes, but all of this is kind of cutting edge. There are many changes that happen from time to time, and you need to keep updating your software in order to make sure that you've got the latest version. The advantage of FLDigi is that it's freeware, so all you have to do is download it. It's completely free. And then there's the end of that ABC logo. So in addition to sending plain text, you can also send web pages and video. A very versatile way to use shortwave.